More than 70% of the Earth is covered with water. It is not surprising that people periodically lack land and they decide to create it on their own, not expecting mercy from nature. A vivid example of this is the artificial islands and entire archipelagos in the Persian Gulf. But few people know that even before the appearance of Palm Islands in the United Arab Emirates, an equally unique and more complex project, the Kansai International Airport, was implemented in Japan. In the second half of the 20th century, the region of the End, located on the island of Honshu, began to experience transport difficulties. At that time, he was already struggling to cope with the traffic flow, and it may seem that it is much easier to expand it. But it was not there. It was located in a densely populated area among buildings, already bringing a lot of discomfort to local residents. The fact is that they suffered from the noise produced by aircraft engines. After numerous complaints and lawsuits from local residents, the authorities were forced to establish a daytime operating mode of the airport, which already aggravated the transport situation in Osaka. For developing international flights, a new round-the-clock airport was required. But the problem was that there was simply no suitable flat terrain in the Osaka area. As a result, they found a place for construction at a distance from the coast, choosing Osaka Bay. Here planes could fly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without disturbing anyone. However, there was only one small problem before starting the construction of the airport. It was necessary to create a land for it, or rather an artificial island. For engineers, this was a step into the unknown, since no one has done such global projects yet. The task was not easy. Earthquakes occur in the Kansai region, which can lead to soil erosion. In addition, Japan often suffers from typhoons. Also, the designers were faced with the task of calculating in advance how much the island could settle in the future. Experts have suggested that for 40 years of operation of the airport, the island will settle under the weight of its own weight by 5.5, well, a maximum of 7 meters. The project developers took into account just the minimum value. After almost 20 years of developing design documentation, in 1987, engineers began construction. It was necessary to create an artificial island 4 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. In the chosen place, the depth averaged 20 meters. However, this factor did not create any special difficulties. There was another serious obstacle, the soil, but Osaka Bay contains a layer of soft clay with a high water content. Divers literally got bogged down in this mess when working at the bottom. All this made this place almost the most unfortunate for a bulk island in the world. But this did not stop the Japanese, since there was simply no choice. In order for the island to be born, engineers used an unusual way to form a stable foundation. Metal pipes were pressed into the ground, which were filled with sand. Then the pipes were removed, and as a result only sand pillars remained, which in themselves contributed to strengthening, and in the future, together with the surface layer of sand, which was also previously poured, had to absorb water from the clay soil, which would be squeezed out of it under the weight of an artificial island. This had to be done on an area of 510 hectares. More than 700 football fields can be placed on a plot of land of this size. In total, engineers needed hundreds of pipes with a diameter of 40 centimeters to make about 1,020,000-meter sand pillars inside the ground. All this did not guarantee that the island would not sink at the initial stage, but sooner or later the soil had to strengthen and stabilize. It was a unique kind of project, and nothing like this has been done so far. The outline of the island took its shape when workers began to erect an 11-kilometer wall of stones and 48,000-strong concrete blocks, Petrapod. The wall protected the fortified soil from erosion and served as the boundary of the island being built. It took 2 years to build it. All work was carried out in parallel. To form the foundation, the Japanese made a huge 15-kilometer conveyor. The end point of the route was self-unloading barges. To get the right amount of rock, excavators cut off entire mountains in the vicinity of Osaka and Kobe. Also, on the nearby island of Ovaji, as a result, it was possible to make an embankment 30 meters high above sea level, protected by a special anti-wave wall. Much attention was paid to the uniform compaction of the soil in the runway area. From a 30-meter height, cranes threw 20-ton ramming ingots, which looks very powerful, unless of course you see this every day. All this work took 3 years. It took 10,000 workers, 80 ships, hundreds of units of ground equipment. Eventually, more than 180 million cubic meters of rock and soil were moved. The largest artificial island of that time was ready, but the final result was still far away. The heart of the island, of course, was to be the world's first airport built on the sea. Its construction began in 1991. Terminal 1 was built according to the project of the Italian architect Renzo Piano, known for his works in the high-tech style. To compensate for the uneven lowering of the island, 900 adjustable columns were designed to support the terminal building. Their technical condition is monitored by computers around the clock. If there is a shrinkage of the soil somewhere, then the column is jacked up, and a thick metal plate is inserted under its base. As mentioned above, experts relied on a value of 5.5 meters for 40 years. That's just for the first 5 years. The island settled by as much as 8 meters, which testify to errors in calculations. They even managed to criticize it as an engineering and geological disaster, but after 10 years, as predicted, the precipitation rate decreased by more than 10 times, and now the island does not fall by more than 5 centimeters per year. Terminal 1 was built using both durable and lightweight materials so that it could withstand the effects of natural elements. In addition to the central part, it has 2 symmetrical wings. The covering of the structure boasts an aerodynamic shape designed taking into account the peculiarities of local nature and climate. Flexible connections are located between the airport frame and the coating to compensate for temperature fluctuations and seismic fluctuations. After the construction of Terminal 1, it became the longest building in the world, 1,672 meters, and is still considered the longest terminal. After stabilizing the ground due to heavy loading, the airport decided to build another artificial island next to it with an additional runway of 4 kilometers. It began to be built in 2003, and already in 2007 the second lane was opened. Interestingly, the second island was made a few meters higher, and at first the planes taxied to the second runway, overcoming a small rise. However, later, when the second island settled, they were almost equal in height, and now the shrinkage of both islands is not considered critical. In 2007, together with the second runway, Terminal 2 was put into operation. It was built on a new island. It began to serve mainly domestic flights. A bridge known as the Gate to Heaven connects the end with the mainland. Its total length is 3,750 meters. Construction began in June 1987 and was completed in 1994, just in time for the opening of the airport. The bridge is made of 2 tiers. There are 6 lanes for automobile traffic on the upper one, and 2 railway tracks on the lower one. The gates to the sky were erected using floating cranes in parts, which were subsequently fastened together. In general, the airport has justified the expectations placed on it in terms of reliability. He really turned out to be very resistant to the violence of the elements. The first tests were waiting for him soon after the opening. In January 1995, one of the largest earthquakes in the history of Japan occurred, killing about 6,500 people. Due to competent design, the airport managed to survive. In 1998, a powerful typhoon swept over Kansai, thanks to a design similar to an airplane wing and a well-fortified coastline. The airport was able to pass the strength test with honor. In subsequent years, the airport on the artificial island was hit by the elements several more times, but managed to get out of all the scrapes with dignity. In total, about $20 billion was spent on the construction of the airport. This is a huge amount and one of the most expensive projects ever implemented in Japan. It can also deservedly be called the most expensive airport in the world, and although due to such huge costs, it has suffered losses for a long time. Sooner or later it should pay off financially, since there is no more free land in Japan. Kansai, without much exaggeration, can be called one of the best examples of human genius. It is amazing not only that the Japanese were able to create the largest artificial island for that period in seemingly impossible conditions, but also were able to build an international airport on it with a passenger flow of 25 million per year before the coronavirus. It is also striking that the Kansai turned out to be very comfortable for passengers. This is evidenced by the awards he received. So in 2021, it entered the top 10 airports in the world, compiled by the British consulting company Skytrax. That's all, friends. Be sure to share the video if you liked it. Write in the comments what you think about this unique airport. And do not forget to rate the video with a like or dislike. See you soon. See you in the next video.